All right. So people have been asking me to make the Arms Warrior video, and I was kind of waiting because, again, they keep changing Arms Warrior. By that I mean they keep buffing it, and they're gonna buff it again this Tuesday. Okay, so I've been kind of holding off on it, and the issue with them buffing Arms is I actually don't think the damage is the issue. It's obviously the survivability of the spec over Fury. And I think they definitely need to change prot stance for Warrior, which in 10.5 they technically are, and I use that loosely. They are making it where it's baseline. Sweeping strikes and prot stance is baseline for Arms Warrior, which again, sure is nice, but is still like it's still an issue. Okay, like the survivability of this spec is terrible. It is awful compared to Fury Warrior, right? Fury Warrior can literally wall. They can use their defensive wall in a stun. It heals them instantly for 20% HP. And Bloodthirst, which is a 2-second cooldown, heals them for 20% like every single time, right? Now, if you factor in Mortal Strike and all this other stuff, it's really not that much, or any other like healing, disabling effects like Shiv, Siphene, all that other stuff, right? So like it helps. But again, a Fury Warrior is dying in that scenario, okay? An Arms Warrior, there is no chance. There's absolutely no chance that they would live in a kind of scenario like that, right? They can't even wall in stuns, right? So you have to like preemptively parry, which is already harder to do than just outright blowing and rage regen, which also again bulk heals you. Um, it's the survivability of the spec, right? So you would stance, you'd go in and out of prot stance, as arms. Like I remember the days of Warlords where I would have a Colossus Smash prot stance macro where like I would immediately use Colossus Smash because I had to be in battle stance and go straight back into prot stance, right? Like this is the issue with Arms Warrior, and they keep trying to buff it, and damage is not the issue. Like this spec is literally doing so much damage now in PvP, it's disgusting. It's probably not as much as Fury right now, just because again I get tunneled and I'm so scared that I always have to sit D stance and I do 20% less damage for a trade-off of 10%. It's terrible, right? It's awful. Um, if I didn't have to do that, I would easily be out damaging Fury Warriors. It is what it is, right? It is like, and even Fury gets a passive wall of 10% for just being in rage. It's already leagues ahead of Arms in terms of being able to survive and sustain and take damage. And they keep trying to give us heals. Like they just buffed Fueled by Violence, where I'm healed for 85% of the damage dealt by deep wounds. You could make this 150%, and it is still dog shit. It is still terrible. Like we are not living. It's just, it does not happen. It doesn't. Anyway, my rant is over. I'm gonna get into the build of what I think is going to be the best post these buffs coming this week. And this is kind of riding off of what I was saying, or what happened like last week with Arms, where they kind of nerfed Rend to buff everything else. And Rend is kind of already dog shit. Like, let me go and tell you this right now, right? So out of PvP combat, right? Rend does 12.8k damage over 15 seconds, okay? That is terrible. I'm not gonna lie. The math is not mathing. This is just awful. Like, you're doing less than 1,000 damage a second, essentially, okay? And again, I could go hit a dummy right now, right? And scale up to my maximum item level in PvP, and it still only does 16,000 damage over 15 seconds. Again, factoring in crit and all that other stuff, it's still nerfed by like 15% or so. And I just don't really care to use it. Like, I'm spending so many talent points to get, Rend, to get Bloodborne, and then I end up getting funneled into Bloodletting and all this other stuff, and then, like, Fatality, right? Which, again, it's just like, I don't really care for, like, this spec. Like, I think it's just not, like, functional. Like, Rend is clunky, it costs 30 rage, it honestly feels terrible to use, it has been for, like, 2 expansions now. And I think this build is better, okay? Sorry, I'm eating, forgive me. I think this version of the build is better because it incorporates cleave damage, where Arms is already cleave-oriented because you have sweeping strikes, right? And it's like a hybrid between Wad Warrior and Legion. And I think that's not terrible. I think it's pretty cool. Right, so you get Whirlwind, which, again, it costs 30 more rage, which is fine. You're not going to have any rage issues bursting anyway. You have Spirit Bastion. You were generating so much rage. It is irrelevant, right? And I'll showcase the damage in a second, right? And again, with it being cleave oriented, you get Fervor of Battle, which Whirlwind hits 2 or more targets. It also slams your primary target, which is useful considering you're dumping 70 rage for it to use it, right? And this is really good in melee cleaves. You could probably swap out some of these talents if you're not fighting a melee cleave as arms in arenas. But if you are fighting like cleaves, this is perfect. And from what I remember in Legion, I'm pretty sure this still functions the same way with sweeping strikes. I haven't tested it in arenas because I've been playing arms, or not arms, sorry. I've been playing Fury because arms is not really that good. There's like one person playing arms, at least when I was playing at the time, which was like the first day of the season, and I haven't queued since. But the person that is running arms that I have seen is Laros. And, you know, props to you, man, for running arms. Like, surely you must love cock and ball torture or something, bro. But I cannot be fucked to play that spec until they, like, actually rework D-stance or make it, like, just give it something. Because the damage it's doing is not the issue. It's literally the fact that it cannot live. Anyway, sweeping strikes should slam 2 targets with Fervor of Battle. It's what it did in Legion. And I ran Fervor of Battle in Legion. I made that spec broken as hell with Ravager. I'm sure some people who probably like played back then probably still remembers the PTSD of getting one-shot by the old TKO special. Um, it's a bit of a meme. But anyway, so, you know, I run Bladestorm. I've got Unhinged. I'm running In for the Kill for more haste. Test of Might doesn't really seem that appealing, and neither does Hurricane. And that's kind of what I'm running. Now, this build is really good with the mixture of stats that I have, or what I aim to have. And I think it's the same rule applies in Shadowlands, is you wanted at least like 15% crit. And you get 4% crit from getting critical thinking talents in both the core warrior tree and the arms warrior tree, right? And my enchants, again, are not suited. My enchants and gems are not suited for arms warrior because I've been playing Fury, right? So I would opt for a little bit more crit, like 15% or so. And haste will not really be an issue because I'm running Wafting Devotion, which gives me like 1700 haste. It roughly ends up being 32% haste, like when you get your proc and you have Warbreaker rolling, and then, you know, it's a sizable chunk of haste. It's pretty good. But that's what I'm running for, like, or what I aim to run for my stats if I were to play arms, which, again, I'm not playing arms right now, but if I were to play it, I would want at least 15% crit, 11% haste is fine. Mastery you can lose a little bit of because it doesn't really scale that well with arms, so you could stand to lose a couple percentage points. And then obviously versatility. Versatility is the PvP stat, which you're just going to have pretty much the equal amount on, right? So to showcase the damage of this build, okay, the damage potential, I'm not going to slam any executes or anything like that because everyone's hitting the dummy, so it's like permanently low HP. So we're not going to use execute. We're going to straight up just use the raw damage of Whirlwind, my full burst, and all that other stuff, right? Alright, so let's go ahead and do this. So yeah, big Mortal Strikes. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say other than, you know, that. So Mortal Strike did 477,000, and I only hit it 4 times, and then obviously Bladestorm helped with Unhinged. I got to hit, you know, 2 extra times. Sphere of Ashen did 104,000, Execute did 102k, and I only hit it once. Bladestorm did 82k in total. I canceled it early. Overpower did 82k. I hit 4 times. Warbreaker by itself did 68,000. Deep Wounds by itself did 60,000. My auto attacks hit 57k. Whatever. Whirlwind did pretty big for only having 1 critical hit. Did 55,000 damage. I mean, potentially, if it all crits, like, you're looking at like 100k, right? And it's also not doing full damage as well. By what I mean with that is, like, it's not hitting 2 people, so you're not slamming the primary target. So, like, if I were to hit, like, these 2 dummies, right? If I reset my data and I hit these 2 dummies, I'm fairly certain, like, we'll just hit these dummies. We're not in PvP. We'll just do it anyway. Yeah, so Sweeping Strike still works with slam. So this would be insane in threes, right? If you're queuing into like a melee cleave, like you're going to do some insane cleave damage, and it's already, like I said, a cleave-oriented spec. Um, so yeah, 65k slam, and it hit two targets there. Like that's insane. Again, like if you're queuing threes, like dude, and you're queuing into melee cleave, like mirror turbo or something like that, like dude, you're looking at some pretty insane cleave damage here. Like consistently insane cleave damage, which is pretty big. And I don't really know what else to say or where else to go with this video, other than like maybe honor talents, like sharpen blade, obviously the must-have. Warbringer is interchangeable for, depending on the comp that you're queuing into with Warbanner, disarm, Storm of Destruction. I like to keep kind of like a mainstay because again, like anger management, resetting, Blade Storm, and Warbreaker by 1 second, and then I have like a minute cooldown on Blade Storm. Like that's kind of big. Like I'd say that's pretty fair. And if you save Warbreaker for Blade Storm, like you're gonna have a burst every 1 minute. Like you have one giant big burst with Avatar and whatnot and Spear, but then every single minute you have Warbreaker and like Avatar, or not Avatar. Sorry, you have Warbreaker and Blade Storm, and those two together, like if we just do this, like on the dummy, like look at this. Like, that's just me AFKing on somebody. Bladestorm did 77k, Motorstruck did 63k. Like, I don't know. Warbringer, I think, is like the only one that's like super interchangeable. And it's just suited to whatever your needs are for the comp. So, alright. So now I have my cooldowns back. Let's say there's a specific scenario where you want to use Sweeping Strikes because you're queuing into a melee cleave, right? So we went over scenario 1 and rotation number 1, okay? Scenario 2, super easy and way more effective in my opinion, to get cleave damage almost right off the bat. I like to play very aggressive in my threes games. Like I want to go instantly, we go for CC instantly, and we try to outpressure the enemy team and be the most aggressive as we possibly can. I've always been an extremely aggressive player, and I will commit really hard, and just my end goal is to be the most like pressuring player possible in terms of just raw damage and just like forcing people to play on the back foot, right? So scenario 2, you're playing into a melee cleave, right? So super simple. The only thing you want to do differently is you want to weave in Sweeping Strikes before you start fighting, right? The globals that you spend matter the most in the very beginning, I would say, because you want to. This leads into like doing the most amount of damage. So queuing into a melee cleave, the first thing I'm going to do is probably charge and then immediately use Sweeping Strikes into like Hamstring and then overpower, and then like Mortal Strike and whatnot. Or Mortal Strike into overpower from Hamstring, right? So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. So we got our Hamstring up, overpower, Warbreaker, Spear, damage, Blade Storm, big Mortal Strikes, 89k, another one, boom, big dam. Still just cleaving. I didn't even use Whirlwind. And that's my fault. I should have. I should have used Whirlwind there. I would have done a lot more damage. That's my fault. And it's mostly because I haven't played it that much. But, again, big damn. So yeah, like... I had one tick of Whirlwind. A single tick. Hit for 48k.
Jeez.
That's one critical. It hit 3 times. If all 3 hit, you're looking at 150k damage. My normal hits hit for 21.5k. It's pretty crazy, and it's cleave damage, so hey. again, that's like scenario number two if you're queuing into like a melee cleave or whatnot. You want to get sweeping strikes up as soon as possible, as soon as you clash with the enemy team, and just immediately start trying to outpressure them. I like to, again, like I used hamstring because, again, sweeping strikes with hamstring, you're gonna hit two people with hamstring. Now they're slowed, or you can skip over hamstring entirely and you can use piercing howl. You could do that too. I like piercing howl too. I mean, that's also good. But that's pretty much like a very like simplified rotation on scenario 1 and 2. Now, again, this is not going to be cut and dry like super like this is what you're going to do every single game because, again, games are subject to change. People tend to kite. They play differently. It is what it is, and PvP is about adapting, right? So don't just like follow this exact method, but try to apply it in your own personal experiences. And that should be the rotation for arms. Uh, yeah, I mean, I know this video was all over the place, and it seems kind of disorganized. For the most part, it is. I've never been really good at planning out like videos and content and whatnot. I'm more of somebody who's like able to actively show people things better, if that makes sense. I'm really bad at planning, but I wanted to cover the stats, like the stat priority, um, for Arms Warrior. I wanted to cover a light, very simplified version of rotation for single target and cleave. And again, the build optimized for just doing the most amount of damage all the time. Um, I'm sure there's a couple builds you can run. This is the one that, like, I've already played Arms a couple times, and I already prefer this build more. Like I said, Rend, super clunky, and then you end up getting shoehorned into more talents, and it just doesn't really feel worth it. This one, it feels like I just pump Mortal Strikes and Whirlwinds and Slams, and I just do damage. But,
Be right back.
I hope this video, has helped you guys. I hope it entices you to want to play Arms, and like I said, hey, Arms is getting buffed next week, so hey, that'll be fun. But I hope this video has helped you, and thank you guys so much for watching, and I'm gonna be making more content soon.